Welcome to the IT Smart Guy podcast, a technology podcast aimed at the modern business owner. And here's your host, Tony Edwards. Hello and welcome to episode 43 of the IT Smart Guy podcast, the tech-based podcast for the modern business owner. My name's Tony, and today we're going to be talking about another lawsuit going Google's way and some recent cyber attacks, one hitting Ticketmaster and the other hitting the NHS. Then we're going to go on to the interview. Yes, that's right, we have another interview for you. We welcome James Gibbons, this time of Link Creator. We talk about some sales stuff and about lead generation and the ways you can get the best from it. At the end, as always, we've got a tip of the episode. So how about we get cracking with the news? Let's look at what's happening in the news. So first up, we're going to discuss a significant development in the online advertising industry that could have wide-ranging implications for businesses and publishers alike. Recently, a £13.6 billion lawsuit against Google has been given the green light by the Competition Appeal Tribunal in London. This lawsuit, initiated by a group called AdTech Collective Action LLP, bit of a mouthful, alleges that Google has engaged in anti-competitive behaviour that's negatively impacted online publishers within the UK. The crux of the case revolves around Google's dominance in the ad tech sector. Now, ad tech, short for advertising technology, is crucial because it determines which online ads are shown to users and how much revenue publishers earn from these ads. Now, according to AdTech Collective Action, Google has abused its dominant position in this market through a practice known as self-preferencing. This means Google has essentially prioritised its own products and services over those of its competitors. Former Ofcom director Claudio Pollock, now a partner in AdTech Collective Action, emphasised the significance of this case. He stated this is a decision of major importance to the victims of Google's anti-competitive conduct in ad tech. The aim is to hold Google accountable for practices that have purportedly led to reduced income for publishers and very high fees paid to Google. Now, Google, on the other hand, has dismissed the lawsuit as incoherent, with their legal director, Oliver Bethel, labelling it as speculative and opportunistic. Google intends to vigorously oppose the claims. Now, the digital advertising market is vast, with a global spend reaching $490 billion in 2021. It's an incredibly valuable market for Google, largely due to its overwhelming dominance within web search. But the allegation here is that the dominance is being misused to stifle competition and essentially disadvantage publishers financially. Now, it's important to note that this case is opt-out, meaning all UK relevant publishers are automatically included unless they choose to opt out. Additionally, the lawsuit is funded by an undisclosed third party, ensuring that participating publishers will not bear the costs of this litigation. This lawsuit is part of a broader scrutiny of Google's ad tech practices, with ongoing investigations by regulators in the UK, Europe, and in the US. Google have already faced substantial fines from the European Commission for similar anti-competitive behaviours. Now, while this legal battle is still in its early stages and could take years to resolve, its outcome could reshape the ad tech landscape significantly. For businesses and for publishers, it's crucial to stay informed about these developments because they could impact digital advertising strategies and revenue models going forwards. So keep those eyes and ears open for more future updates. Next up, a significant data breach has happened involving Ticketmaster. This could affect millions of people worldwide. Ticketmaster, owned by Live Nation, has confirmed that hackers accessed its database and potentially stole personal details of up to 560 million customers. This detail could include names, addresses, phone numbers, partial credit card information, and more. The hacking group Shiny Hunters are demanding a $500,000 ransom to keep the data from being sold. Now, Live Nation reported the breach on the 27th of May after discovering the stolen data being offered for sale on the dark web. They are investigating the extent of the breach, but exact numbers of affected customers is still unknown. The breach was initially revealed by the hackers themselves through an online post. Ticketmaster only confirmed the breach to stakeholders days later, not immediately informing the public. Governments and the FBI are now involved to try and address this issue. Live Nation is working to mitigate future risk to customers, and it is notifying those who have been affected. They believe this incident will not significantly impact their overall business, but the potential harm to individuals is substantial. Ticketmaster is one of the largest ticket sales platforms globally, and this breach could be one of the biggest ever. The stolen data sensitivity is still unclear, but it could be highly damaging. This breach is just part of a broader hacking campaign. Another major hack involving Santander, where data from 30 million customers was stolen, possibly linked to the same group. Shiny Hunters has a history of high-profile breaches, including those affecting AT&T in America and Pizza Hut in Australia. It's crucial to know what to do if you think your data may have been compromised. Firstly, stay alert. Be cautious about suspicious emails, messages, or phone calls. Hackers might use your information to trick you into revealing more personal details. Verify the communication. Be skeptical of messages asking you to reset passwords, receive compensation, scan devices, or address missed deliveries. These could be phishing attempts. Monitor your financial accounts. Regularly check your bank and your credit card statements for any unusual activity. Early detection can help prevent further financial loss. Change your passwords. Update your Ticketmaster password and any other accounts using the same password to protect yourself. Have unique passwords for every account. Now, while Ticketmaster and Live Nation work to resolve this issue, it's important for everyone to take steps to protect their data, just like the ones I've just mentioned. Cyber threats are constantly evolving, and being informed and proactive is our best defense. But with that being said, it does seem like our hospitals in the UK are being held to digital ransom too, because a serious cyber attack has disrupted several major London hospitals, including King's College Hospital, Guy's Hospital, and St Thomas's. This incident has significant implications for patient care as well as hospital operations. According to Kieran Martin, the former chief executive of the National Cyber Security Centre, a Russian hacking group called Quilin, Quilin, is behind this attack. The hackers targeted Synovis, a company providing pathology services to the NHS, and are demanding a ransom. This attack has infected blood transfusions, test results, and even led to the cancellation of operations and the diversion of emergency patients. Mr. Martin explained that this hacking group operates on the dark web and has previously attacked various organisations, including automotive companies, Australian courts, and even the big issue here in the UK. He noted while the hackers are seeking money, the British government maintains a policy of not paying ransoms. Now, there are two types of ransomware attacks. One involves stealing data and extorting victims to prevent its release. This attack, however, is more severe because it renders systems inoperable. Mr. Martin emphasised that this is one of the more serious cyber attacks seen in the UK, impacting the functionality of critical services rather than just data. As of Wednesday evening, which would have been the 5th of June, the NHS reported ongoing disruptions at Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Foundation Trust, King's College Hospital NHS Foundation Trust, and primary caregivers in South East London. An NHS London spokesperson assured that all urgent and emergency services remain open and that most outpatient services are operating as usual. However, some operations and procedures dependent on pathology services specifically have been postponed, and blood testing is being prioritised for urgent cases, which is leading to some cancellations. The NHS has launched a cyber incident response team working around the clock to minimise disruption. Patients are advised to continue accessing services normally by dialing 999 in emergencies and using the NHS 111 service for other needs. And patients should attend their appointments unless they've been notified otherwise. Now, one patient, Oliver Dowson, shared his experience of having his heart operation cancelled at the last minute due to issues with the blood bank caused by this attack. Now, this really highlights the very personal and immediate impact such cyber attacks have on individuals. Synovis, which processes about 100,000 blood tests a day for the NHS and serves around 2 million patients, has not provided further comment on the attack. To summarise, while the NHS and other involved entities work tirelessly to resolve this issue, it's crucial for everyone again to stay informed and prepared for potential disruption. Cyber attacks like these remind us all of the vulnerabilities in our critical infrastructure and the importance of having robust cybersecurity measures in place. Now, if you need help to enhance your online safety and cybersecurity, please reach out. That's it for the news. Let's jump into the interview. The interview. So before we jump into the interview, like with the last one in episode 42 with David Crushell, there are some audio quality issues. These interviews were recorded on the same day, which is why there are similar issues. Essentially, I'm a little bit quiet, they're a little bit loud, but you should still get plenty of value. I'm going to hand over to me to introduce James. So we now come to the interview stage of the podcast, and today I'm delighted to welcome on a chap I've met recently. I say recently, it's been almost a year now, on and off within the Winchester networking circuit. He runs a company called Link Creator, which is an outsourced business development company targeting technology. So I'd like to welcome James to the podcast. There he is.
Hello, hi, how you doing?
James. I'm good, yourself?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me on.
No, thank you very much for coming along and sharing your expertise and your time as well. So I truly appreciate every guest that I've had come on, because none of our guests get paid. It's all it's all done at the goodness of your heart. So like I said, I honestly appreciate every single one of you. So thank you for being one of our guests.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks.
First question. Let's go old school Cilla Black. So, why don't you tell the audience who you are, where you come from, what you do, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I'm James Gibbons. I run a outsourced business development agency called Link Creator. We predominantly work with technology-based businesses, and what we do, we're kind of that extra arm extension of those businesses to get those companies in the room with their target prospects at the right time. So we're very much nurturing relationships, opening new doors, and ensuring that we're getting through to the kind of larger opportunities which they want to be in front of, who they may or may not already have existing networks with. And that's predominantly what we do, and we've been doing that for 6.5 years. We've worked with lots of different tech businesses, including things like companies which get involved with intranets, portals. We've worked with companies who are Dynamics partners. We've worked with companies who do NetSuite integrations. We've worked with companies who do websites. So we've got lots and lots of experience working with different tech businesses.
And was there a reason you decided to go down the tech route for business development as opposed to any other industry?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tech's continually evolving and growing, and it's something I've always been interested in. At the first point, but secondly, we found from the amount of intelligence you can gather into prospects, there's so much out there you can gather with regards to technology companies, which maybe in other industries is a lot harder to find. So I'll give you an example within that. For a company which is selling websites, for example, there's lots of tools we can use which can kind of look into the back end of people's websites, understand what the content management system is that the website's currently built on, and other applications which are kind of alongside the or plugged into the current website. So you can really, really see everything that's already in there. So it's very good for painting a good picture of what that organization already has in place.
Interesting. And what made you? So obviously, what made you go down the outsourced route as opposed to finding a company and working as an, I suppose, as an employee doing business development, or did you do that before going solo?
Yeah, so I've done that for a few businesses prior, working in business development. Obviously, tech's really taken off in the last 10 years or so, and you especially look at things like SaaS, so software as a service, has really come to the forefront, especially much more since COVID times. Obviously, it massively accelerated for some SaaS-based businesses. But we really found that there was this gap where there'll be lots and lots of companies who may not be VC backed. So companies who are kind of bootstrapped originally, they might give you an idea of what those companies might look like. There'll be companies that may be anywhere from 10 employees to around about 50 to 100 employees. They have a lot of tech people working internally in the organization, but they might be still have the founder who's going out selling the solutions, and he might have two or three people in the marketing team and maybe one or two salespeople. And what they really want is to have those salespeople just on the road meeting people. They don't want them to be doing that kind of opening the door, getting the conversations going, nurturing relationships, and actually understanding when the time is right and the problem that they can actually fix. They only want to be in the room at that point. And that's where we really come in, and we can work on an ad hoc basis for clients. So for some clients, we can work several times a week. For other clients, we might just do half a day a month. It really varies depending on who the client actually is. But yeah, it's also nice to be talking about multiple different propositions as well. So it keeps you on your toes, and you're always learning new things. So it's good.
Yeah, that's kind of why I love what I do, because it's not one size fits all. When you my background was internal IT before going into managed services.
Hmm.
And when you're internal IT, you deal with typically one's technology for everything,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
rather than multiple. And so it's been quite a ride of learning different technologies. Luckily, because I came from procurement, I was internal IT for a procurement company.
Uh,
We were looking at lots of technologies all the time anyway, so that gave me
yeah,
a little bit of
absolutely.
additional education during those years.
Yeah, and I think with tech as well, I think it's accelerating now as well. So in terms of different services and products, you've lots of companies have really got to be on it in terms of understanding that the technology is moving so fast and things are evolving so quickly. So a product which could be really highly rated now today, with obviously things like AI now coming out as well, companies got to look at how they're actually going to put that into their solutions.
Yeah,
And in 3 to 5 years' time, something which could be a leader at the moment possibly could not be, maybe even less time, could maybe even not be at all in the next 12 months to 2 years. It's really quite an exciting time for tech. It's moving so fast.
yeah, and I think for businesses to be able to adopt these technologies, um, t- quite often in a normally a quick turnaround is
Yeah,
it's not something we've really seen before.
yeah, and I think
You
one a
think
really
back
interesting,
pre-COVID, if somebody wanted to adopt new technology, especially with my procurement head on, it would take weeks because you have to
mhm,
go through the tender process, trial it, before you actually rolled it out. So it could be anywhere from 1 to 6 months.
yeah, absolutely,
And for small, especially for the smaller, more nimble businesses where there is maybe 5 to 10 people, they don't need all of that paperwork and due
yeah,
diligence and this and that. A lot of them, they just want to just get, give me the technology and I'll work out how to use it, or give me the
yeah,
technology, give me some help, and they can be
Yeah, well, I
they can
think
be up
that
and running with something in a couple of weeks, can't they?
well, that's a really great point, because I think we've worked with lots of clients in the past who are especially working, for example, in the financial space, and in the financial space, so with banks maybe that have been going for a long period. There's so much legacy applications in those organizations, and it's trying to leverage that in terms of getting that data out of those legacy applications and actually getting it in a format and a way which the bank can actually make use of that information and actually leverage all of that data. And it's so interesting when I talk to people with them saying, oh yeah, we're looking at moving part of our solutions and applications to a new application, but they're not looking at moving all of it. And you look at it and you think, well, it's just so much legacy still in organizations. It can be a real challenge. And as you rightly say, a new company starting today with 5-10 employees after a year or two, they're so much faster. You can adopt things. You don't need to have certain devices which other older businesses need, and you can move very quickly with the time. So yeah, really relevant.
Yeah, and it is that you hit the nail on the head there. It is typically those financial institutions. Legal was the other one, really, that
Hmm.
have got those typically very old legacy ways of working. And I think that in those sectors, there's a lot of concern that if they modernise, they're going to almost lose part of their identity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And I think, yeah.
also, especially we're thinking about the legal sector, typically they bill for everything they do.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
so it might be that modernisation, yeah, they really want to do it, but they're not. They've made a conscious decision not to because
Yeah.
their billables are going to go down.
Well, this is it. Yeah, exactly. So, yes, that's a really valid point. But I think there's lots of ways in which things are evolving as well. So in terms of the way people are actually buying things now is completely changing as well, in terms of that process that people go through as well.
Yeah, quite. I don't know about you, but there's very little now that I would buy in a shop.
Hmm.
Typically, the only thing I would really go and buy in a shop is clothes.
Yeah, where you've actually got to physically try it on, unless you're like
Predominantly.
me and like shopping at Crew Clothing and you know your size, and then you just go along and buy it.
That's the thing. I say that, but the last three items that I've bought online
Hmm.
because the nearest shop is so far away. I'm like, it's cheaper for me to order it in, try
Yeah,
it on. If it fits, great. If it doesn't, just send it back for free.
exactly. Yeah.
Um, and it's it's concerning. Technology is great. I'm a techie. My business feels like it's part of me all the time. But it is to kind of go off track a little bit. It is a shame what's happening to the retail industry. They haven't been able to. They've adapted to online, but
Hmm.
because of that, the high streets. You walk down. I mean, we're both from Winchester. You walk down Winchester High Street now, and it's
Yeah.
predominantly cafes and coffee shops,
Yeah.
restaurants,
Hmm.
or gyms
Yeah, it's definitely not the
with
same as what it was
with a little light
a few years
smattering
ago.
here and there of charity shops, and it's like, like you said, it's not what it was. You think back. I mean, I've lived in Winchester my entire life. If I think back 20 years,
Hmm.
the high street was completely different. The
Absolutely.
market was in the, would run typically on a Saturday, and it would be in the car park opposite Iceland, and it would
Hmm.
take up that whole car park, but nobody cared
Yeah.
because parking was relatively low, and it had always been there, and they've moved it all out onto the high street to try and make the high street look busier,
Hmm.
but it isn't. It's just making it harder for people to navigate.
Well, I think within that there's also an opportunity with being for organisations to come in and also look at ways of potentially using things like technology to make a more kind of leisure experience,
Yeah,
so that when people come into the city, there's a lot more going on. And I still think that's a big gap there, which people could leverage. So I think over time we could see some movement there as well.
yeah. I remember when so I worked in retail for a number of years, and I remember discussing with one of my managers there was I can't remember what the technology was called, but essentially, if somebody walked past and their phone Bluetooth was on, it
Right.
would ping them an offer.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And it was I was working in a restaurant, and I'm like, it's quiet Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, especially in the evenings. Right,
Hmm.
if we could get 2 grand for this piece of kit, we could set up an offer. People are walking past the restaurant all the time,
Yeah.
and most, even back then, most people's Bluetooth was on.
Hmm.
I mean, it'd be even better now because our phones are on Bluetooth all the time because we're either connecting to headphones or watches or whatever.
Yeah.
But even then, Bluetooth was a technology that was being used quite regularly. You think if you got 5 people coming in the door, you give them 20% off. But you get 5 people that weren't going to come in. That
Yeah.
2 grand is the return on investment would be quite quick, and you could just roll that through every week. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's just
Great ideas.
yeah, it's just funny how these little ideas just unfortunately fall on deaf ears because it involves the unknown, which is
Yeah.
I think an ongoing struggle with tech.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I would. Yeah, and I think what's quite interesting. I mean, to name a couple of companies out there who've really transformed the way in which they're selling things to people. I think the one that really springs to mind is HubSpot. So HubSpot, I'm not sure if you're aware. I mean, this year, the year-on-year growth, they're still showing 25% year-on-year growth in terms of the amount of people signing up and using HubSpot. And anyone else out there who's watching the podcast today is probably aware, if they're not a user of HubSpot, is that actually you can get onto the platform just by going to the website and start becoming a user and using elements of it straight away. So in terms of needing to speak to a salesperson or speak to someone before you even start using the application, it's not required. And I think that's a really interesting lesson there in terms of how well they've been able to adopt the platform with certain ways in which people can follow certain flows, of how they want to actually use the applications, and really, really interesting growth there. And I think that's where I think there's going to be a lot more growth and a lot more people moving towards that kind of model over the next few years, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, and they've changed their model as well over the last couple of years because I've used HubSpot so 4, 5, 7 years on and off.
Hmm.
All since when I set the business up, I was like, right, I've used HubSpot before. I know roughly how it works. I'm going to keep using it. I use it every
Yeah.
day.
Hmm.
And I got to a point where I started to need some of the paid elements, and I'm like, I've heard it's really expensive. And I remember when I first took the free version out, and I'm like, wow, that's it was like I can't remember how much it was a month for a single user, but it was quite substantial.
Hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, okay, I won't upgrade just yet. And I got to a point where I'm like, I really need that element.
Hmm.
And I just jumped onto a web chat with one of their advisors. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm after this, and this. And they're like, okay, that's fine. Broke it all down. It's going to be this much. And I'm like, but on the website it says it's this much. And they're like, yeah, the website's not quite right yet because we've just changed all of our pricing.
Right.
They brought the barrier to entry down for the starter.
Hmm.
So I think I paid £35 including VAT a month for HubSpot.
Yeah. Hmm.
Just on the starter, but that's just so much more powerful because it means I've got things like on my website. If somebody goes on and goes to leave the website, a little pop up comes up saying, "Looks like you're leaving. Sorry to see you go. Why don't you enter your name and email address and we'll send you a free ebook?" And it puts them into a very, very small drip campaign to
Absolutely. Which
get
is,
access to the ebook. Which
yeah.
again, if even if it doesn't lead to a direct sale, it leads it's giving them hopefully some value. But you couldn't do that on the free one.
No, well, that's why I think there's probably six core key elements with regards to business development, which I would say are six key core developments, and I think some of them, so people might say, will cross over with marketing, but I think you've got to look at it as the whole piece. Marketing and sales basically need to be running together.
Yeah,
You can't be two separate entities. Business development is all kind of sat in the middle of that. You need all pieces to be working together and succinctly for it to work effectively. So very much like what you're doing, Tony, with regards to the content which you're always putting out. It's great kind of content, always adding value, giving opinions, looking at to really put yourself front and center, but also obviously being very social. So ensuring it's going out onto the social media
So
platforms.
you saw my cufflink post this morning
Yeah, absolutely.
then.
Yeah. I think it's really important. But also, I think in terms of business development, people want to see the face of the company as well. They don't like seeing faceless companies. They like seeing all of it. They like to see who the person is,
Yeah,
who is you're actually going to be dealing with, as well as interesting articles around new developments in the tech space. But yeah, very much so. People like to see that. People are still buying from people. That's the thing. You need that relationship. People are buying from people,
yeah,
and even though you've got the company behind it, fundamentally that is what the transaction is about. But also around that as well, another key core element is around SEO, people's websites. So SEO might traditionally think, oh, that's more digital marketing. It's business development as well. If your website's not ranking and your website's not set up properly and you don't have the alt tag set up on your images, you're not going to be found. So actually, in terms of that kind of people coming through to your website and clicking on articles, which then they might ask for some more information or want to speak to someone at that point, it's absolutely crucial to have that in place to really know your SEO is properly, really well managed, and
yeah,
you are improving in terms of the rankings, and you are looking at what the keywords are that people are searching for, and really understanding that where your business can add value. And alongside that, as you rightly said, around the email campaign for those resources. So even if someone wants to go off and do something else, you kind of still got another hook to
yeah,
keep people coming in, and whatever that messaging might be, it's so important to have those various different hooks so that those people can. I mean, I think I read something the other day in one of the industry leading magazines that when someone comes to your website to look at something, quite a large majority of the time, they're 40 to 50% through the sales
yeah,
process already. So in terms of actually understanding I want to buy something, or I think I might need something, they're coming to you because they're actually searching for your services directly.
yeah,
It's not a case they've just landed on you by accident. They are actually looking for something specific. So it's so key that you've got all those elements as well. But then also thinking of things like lead magnets. So you might want to add value with adding some white papers and things like that. That's traditionally would have been a marketing based role. That is business development as well. It's so crucial that those things are part of the process. And then bringing it all together of what we do at Link Creator is around really researching who those target elements are, who they want to go for, and actually reaching out to them. So as and when you've understood they've been on the website, they might have clicked on 2 or 3 different articles. We know who the right person is that we need to be speaking to, and we think that is the person that's been on the website. It's about then approaching them with having that intelligence behind you in terms of understanding, taking the website example again, what the CMS they're currently working on, the content management system, and what's plugged into the website. You might already think about some of the challenges they might be facing with regards to how they're currently running things, and you can go and have that conversation. It's a case of just very getting into that conversation quickly and easily and nurturing that relationship. It's about building a relationship and then being in the room at the right time.
yeah. I just want to pick up on something you just said then around challenges.
Hmm.
It's it's so I've had a few conversations this week with people, and it seems that challenges seem to be a good way of opening up those conversations because people, you know, you and I met at a networking event, and you turn up each month, and it's like, oh, how's it going? And most of the time, yeah, it's going all right. Could be better, could be worse. That's the general
Hmm.
gist, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if you say, oh, what challenges have you got in your business? All of a sudden, for I would say 80% of people, the floodgates just open and they just go.
Absolutely, yeah. Then it's just
Um,
really after you've
and
asked
it's
those
something
kind of
I
good.
hadn't really. I've known about it, I've heard about it, but I've never actually thought about the marketing or sales that could conjoin that to essentially become a method of selling.
Yeah, well, I think that
Um,
the real key is understanding that if someone doesn't have any perceived problems or challenges, they're not going to buy anything.
no,
So fundamentally, if they don't feel it's a problem or a big enough problem or challenge in their business, they're not going to buy it. So actually, um, we always believe in the way in which we do things at Link Creator, and our clients we choose to work with as well and who choose to work with us is we don't want to force things on people either. It's got to be a right fit for both ways. So both ways, it's a fix for the customer because you're solving a challenge which will actually help them. It could be in terms of speeding up something in the background or the back office. It could be in terms of just having a more responsive site, etc., or whatever the case might be. But it's actually fundamentally bringing value to their business, and without them doing it now, you can then build into that from the questioning that if they're not going to do it now, what the implications are for them. And that's what selling is. It's about building relationships and really understanding those kind of pains and challenges. But as I say, if they don't perceive they have any pains or challenges, then that's absolutely fine. You can't help every single person, but you never know, in 6 or 9 months' time, they might have that challenge. So it's about leaving that good relationship open, so that as and when that challenge might come up for them, that you are then front and center of mind, which goes back to all the 6 things I mentioned around the content, all that kind of thing, so they then get back in touch with you again.
Yeah. And I think that's quite often an issue for businesses. If somebody doesn't buy straight away, it's like, okay, that's a no, and they leave them and never go back and keep in touch.
Yeah.
So
Well,
seems to be the only one. It's only the successful ones that even if they're told no straight away, that keep in touch.
we've had a client at Link Creator who we've been working with for a while. We've actually nurtured a relationship for 2 years before they were ready to actually buy something. And that was how long the process, just for the size and the scale of the business and how they were doing things. They had a need, but they didn't actually have the requirement to move for up to 2 years because it's such a big change for them across the business. And it's kind of understanding that and nurturing that relationship. And 2 years is a long time, right? How do you keep yourself front and center in that period? If you spoke to someone, they potentially got that need, but they're kind of saying to you, it's time constrained because of other elements within the organization. How do you keep yourself front and center? It's very much about nurturing that relationship.
And it can be as simple as an email every month, or
Yeah.
a phone call. It's just putting in those regular touch points, isn't it? Especially once you've got that relationship to a stage where they haven't said no, but they haven't said yes. But if you, like you said, if you drop off the face of the earth for 6 weeks and then pop back up, you've been forgotten about.
Absolutely. I think it's also interesting content. So podcasts are a great way of keeping people interested in you and your services, and I think that's really key as well.
Videos can be massive
Videos,
as
yeah,
well.
webinar content about specific challenges which you can fix as well. I think they work very well. We have a lot of our clients who get involved with doing a lot of webinars. They might, for some of the smaller companies, they might only do like once a quarter. However, they are a really good way of getting people another thing to talk about, nurture that relationship, get them into the room, and then you've got another chance again to keep building that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think since COVID, I don't know about you, but I've found that people seem to be now more open to going places again.
Mm-hmm.
So like industry events. There's two next week within 3 days.
Yeah.
In London, and I can't afford to go for 3 days,
Mm-hmm.
but I can go to both events over 2 days and still
Yeah.
be contactable for my clients and all the rest. It's funny, within the IT space, it seems to be that there's never just one event on at a time. There's always 2 or 3 spread across the same time frame, which is a nightmare because I'd love to be able to go to all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But those types of events are great because you get insight, and you never know who you're going to meet. But also like things like lunch and learns and things like that.
Absolutely. I think all of that's really, really key. And I think also it's about building the network as well. So constantly building the network all the time. And it's meeting even people in similar organizations. It's not a case you're always competing against one another. You can also be helping one another as well at different points as well, where you might, if some customer comes along, they might need extra capacity, etc., or there might be a problem that you can't fix for a customer because of some specific reason, and they might do something slightly differently and might be able to help fix that. So yeah, there's all sorts of different ways, and I think networking, especially at those events, is so crucial.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, there was, you mentioned problems which you can't fix, but a competitor that might be able to, or somebody that might be able to. I had that just this morning when I was at the Winchester networking event.
Mm-hmm.
one of the participants asked me if I knew, the ins and outs of Google My Business, and I'm like, I know enough. What's the problem? She told me the problem. I'm like, I can't help you, but I know somebody that might, and
Yeah.
I'm all about collaborating with people and if I know somebody that can solve a problem better than I can, or I can solve a problem that I can't,
Hmm.
happily introduce. I've got no qualms about that. But then you've got other people that are like, I can't help you, but I'm not going to tell you who to speak to because you might want to go and work with them instead. And
Yeah, which is not a good way of looking at things, because actually networking, and you get a good reputation that way by actually helping potentially for free as well.
yeah,
You're not actually looking at anything for it, and then actually it builds your reputation and credibility.
absolutely. And you never know, just helping that person with like I said, an introduction into somebody else, she might
Yeah.
he or she then might get asked, oh, do you know a tech support company based
Hmm.
in X, Y, and Z? And like, well, yeah, I do. Speak to this guy. This is why, and that's where those word of mouth referrals come from, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Which,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
face it, when businesses typically new and starting up in the first, 3 to 5, even 10 years, those word of mouth referrals are gold dust.
Absolutely. Yeah. Really, really key.
Um, so, link creator. Let's talk again. You outsource business development. What are the key elements that you support or that you provide so that the listeners or the watchers, because we do go out on video as well,
Hmm.
if they're interested in your service or want to find out more, give us a little bit of a
Yeah.
elevator pitch, as it
So
were.
yeah, so we very much take like a kind of account-based marketing approach to working with our customers. So our customers, as I mentioned, would typically already know people within their network. They've already got working with a few other businesses, and it's those kind of people that sit outside the network but are kind of their ideal prospects. We can research who those companies are. We can identify who the people are. We can identify the applications those organizations are currently using in the tech space. We can very much look at um, different elements to break down what kind of collateral we're going to send at different parts along the way. We can kind of work through a process in terms of what we feel might work quite well in terms of an outreach campaign, which could be a mixture of email, it could be a mixture of doing podcasts. And crucially, it's also the one element people really struggle with is the outbound element, which is actually just picking up the phone and getting into those conversations with the right client at the right time and building a warm conversation to nurture that relationship until they're ready to want to see something, to potentially buy something. And at that point, we get our clients into the room.
Not gonna lie, I think for most, especially smaller businesses, that's probably the hardest thing to do. Pick up the phone
Hmm.
and have those conversations because, again, especially for single person businesses, you've got
Yeah.
so much to do.
Well, I think a lot of people are hiding
Especially when you've
behind it
got
now.
clients. You've got so much to do during the day as it is. It's like if I spend an hour picking up the phone, I'm not necessarily going to finish that project, and it's weighing those things up. But yeah, I think you're right. I think people are scared of it. I'll hold my hand up. I am a bit scared of picking up the phone because I don't know why. What's the worst that can happen? They hang up and they say no.
Yeah.
But
We hardly ever get anybody hang up on us, and I think that's the reason for that is being very, very professional in the approach. So when you first speak to someone, you would say, for example, "Hi Tony, I know you understand that you're the director of BitSmart," and you go into that conversation straight away. You're building credibility that you've looked at them as an
yeah,
organisation, you've researched that organisation, you know a little bit about them, and then you lead with your customer's opening elevator pitch and then ask really good open and probing questions to get into a conversation. And if they're not ready, they'll tell you and say, oh, it's not quite up for us at the moment. However, would you mind sending me something? And that sometimes can be an objection. Other times it can be, yes, what would you like to see? You kind of move
yeah,
that conversation forward and try and never just say, yes, I'll send you an email, because that could just be I'm a bit busy now, leave me alone. But also at the same time, it kind of moves that conversation forward so you can kind of delve a bit deeper into what those challenges might be. and just accept it and say, yeah, that's absolutely fine if that's the way they want to be communicated with. Send it to you via email, and then ask them a question again. Would you object if I called you back in 2-3 weeks' time to discuss this in a bit more detail? And 9 times out of 10, they say yes. So,
Brilliant. Well, I'm conscious that you are a busy man. We have been chatting for just over half an hour.
great.
So my final question: what's one piece of advice that you think our listeners would be interested in hearing? Remember, the listeners are typically business owners, not necessarily within the tech space, but
Yep.
have you got a nugget of wisdom or?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest and best exercises you can do as a business owner within a small business is identifying who those top 100 businesses are that you want to work with. And it's all very well saying, I want to work with EasyJet and I want to work with those people. But is that realistic to you? What is actually your target client? And when we ask companies who that actually is, they come back to us with 6 or 7 companies and maybe an industry they don't really know. And actually, it's when we actually paint that picture and build it out for them, we can then pass them that intelligence, which also shows if those organizations are growing, if they're declining, have they been bought into, are they VC backed, are they going to go on a journey in this next 12 months? It's really crucial to know all of that information. If you don't know it, you're already a step behind your competition because your competition will know it. And it's so crucial. So I'd say really that intelligence piece right at the beginning of really understanding and painting that picture of who the top 100 would be.
Brilliant. Look, so thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you for having me,
I'll
Tony.
reiterate your nugget of wisdom as the tip for the episode. Again, at the end of every episode that we put out, there's a tip. Whenever I have an interview guest on, I try and just put their tip into my own words. Again, just to reiterate the point. And yeah, I've been working on my list for a little while now. Obviously, you gave me some pointers and stuff, which has helped. I've had some more conversations this week with another IT. He's a coach, but he's not a coach. So I want to just give a quick shout out to Joe Burns.
I know Joe. Yeah.
Yeah, he spent an hour. Of course, because I forgot you've been where you're in the industry, but again, there's a few people we know with some crossover.
Yeah, well, so Joe, I met Joe at an event in Victoria last year, and met him around a round table networking, and he's a really interesting guy. Obviously, he's had one business previously. He's now on his next business, and a really great guy to talk to, especially in terms of how he's been able to scale that business and really grow, and the methods he's got behind it. So yeah, Joe's a really good contact.
Yeah, so he gave me a few pointers. In fact, I've got like 4 pages of notes next to me.
Great stuff.
Things that just came up in my mind as we were chatting. So but it's quite funny because obviously when I first met you, I didn't quite realise how much crossover we had. Obviously, there's Joe now, and then there's Alex of Activate as well, and no doubt there's more. But it's been, like I said, been great to talk to you.
And you, Tony. Thank you.
Our tip of the episode. Firstly, huge thanks to James for coming onto the show. Truly appreciate you taking the time out of your week to come on and talk about how you work with businesses to deliver lead generation services and more. At the end, I asked James what was one thing he could impart and one thing that you could take away. And his nugget of wisdom was around building your ideal client list, but being realistic with them. For example, you might really, really want to work with Apple. But because your small business manufactures widgets for washing machines, realistically, you're not going to do business directly with Apple, are you? So not having Apple on your list is a good thing. So build out that list. Work out your top 100 companies that you want to work with and go to town on them. Research them. Find out as much information as you can about who they are, what they do, who they work with, their directors, their turnover, all of that good stuff. Then scour social media. Try and find out where they're hanging out. Follow their content. Add value where you can through comments and things. Now, it will take some time to get into some of these depending on what you provide. But if you're being visible and if you're in the right place at the right time, the world potentially is your oyster. So go out and build that list right now. Now, I've been heeding this advice for the past few weeks, and my list has augmented a lot. It's a little bit over top 100, but I'm not going to be targeting them all at once. And when I do, it's not going to be information overload. Little and often is more often the best way. That's it. Here we are once again at the end of another episode of the IT Smart Guy podcast. Thank you once again for watching or for listening. I truly hope you found this episode enjoyable and insightful and you've learned something. And I look forward to speaking to you again in the next episode. As always, I do have that one small favour to ask. If you've enjoyed the episode, even if you haven't, leave a comment or a review on your podcast platform of choice or on YouTube. The comments are the only way I can get better at doing this stuff. If you haven't already, give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube. Don't forget we've got our new dedicated channel. You can also follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. I've been Tony, the IT Smart Guy, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks for listening to the IT Smart Guy podcast. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please do consider to like and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice.